On today's show, the matchup we've all been waiting for, Liberty versus Lynx, is finally happening. And we're previewing everything you need to know about the first of four 2024 WNBA Finals rematches. The Locked On Women's Basketball Podcast, it starts right now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. You are Locked On to Women's Basketball. I'm Jackie Powell, and happy Lynx and Liberty Day. I am one of
Finally.
Yes.
Finally.
I am one of your hosts on this program. I cover the New York Liberty at the Next, and I've covered women's basketball and its culture nationally at many other places. Check out all of the excellent women's basketball reporting and writing and podcasting that we are doing at the Next. And please consider subscribing to make sure that the journalists that work so hard to cover this sport are paid for their valuable work. Anyway, thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you all by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Also, I want to welcome Minnesota Lynx beat writer Terry Horstman to the show. He's a familiar face for a lot of you. And Terry, you just launched a Lynx-specific podcast on Locked On. Tell everyone what it is and when you can find it.
I did. Thank you for that, Jackie. And thank you for having me on. It's great to be here again. It's great to see you again, months into the season. I know we'll get into this, but it feels crazy that we've had to wait this long for a finals rematch. But yeah, Lynx Report, part of the Locked On Women's Basketball family of shows, is coming. And our talented colleague, Tony East, who covers the Fever, his show's on Fridays. He calls it Fever Fridays. So I am co-opting Minnesota Mondays. So you can start your week with a Minnesota Monday, end it with a Fever Friday, and the Sunday scaries will be gone because you get to hang out with me on Mondays now, talking Minnesota Lynx basketball. Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so today we are going to get into everything, preparing you all to be able to take in what is undoubtedly the game of the week between the Lynx and the Liberty, a matchup that shouldn't have taken almost 2 months to get to. So in segment one, we are going to backtrack a little bit. We're going to remind you all about where these teams have been since the last time they've met. Mm-hmm. What did their off seasons and first half of 2025 look like? And then in segment two, Terry is going to share with us what he learned from Lynx practice on Tuesday, along with both of us laying out sort of the struggles that both teams have been facing in recent days and recent weeks. And then finally, in segment three, we are going to talk all about keys to this game, matchups to look out for, and my personal favorite, we're going to do predictions. So, okay, here we go. Let's talk about where these teams have been since the absolutely explosive and intense 5-game 2024 WNBA Finals. So, Terry, take us through, I guess, where the Lynx have been, what they've done since that Game 5.
Well, it's going to be difficult to, sum it all up in just, the next 5-6 minutes we have here. But it's kind of fun that we had that, very iconic, maybe the most exciting finals ever. Certainly one of the most exciting finals ever. And then the two stars from each team founded a new offseason league together, unrivaled. If you haven't heard of it, then I don't know where you've been living the last 6 months or so. So it's interesting. I remember back in training camp, myself and the other local media here in Minneapolis, we were kind of like, all right, day one of training camp, we're going to ask about the finals. We'll ask how pissed they are, maybe use the term revenge tour a little bit. But then me personally, I was like, I'm not asking you about this ever again until maybe like the end of the finals this year. But now, that's like there's a good range of media involved, and, people who weren't covering Minnesota Lynx day one training camp are like, oh, so you guys still upset about the way things ended last year? But the Lynx have done their part, I'd say, to either avenge or just put that 2024 finals in the rear view. The defense is top of the league once again. Offense is rolling for the most part. There's obviously a hiccup against Atlanta on Sunday, but I think you can hesitate to worry too much when it's July 30th as you're listening to this, and they've lost one game at home in the regular season. We're not counting the Commissioner's Cup final. So the Lynx have been doing Lynx things. I think Nafisa Collier is the clear MVP favorite, front runner, whatever you want to call her. If you want to argue about it, at me. But yeah, so I think the Lynx have lived up to, if not exceeded, expectations so far in 2025.
For sure. I think the one thing I want to ask you about before I chat about things on the New York side is what types of roster changes went on for the Lynx when you look at what that 2024 team looked like and now what the 2025 roster looks like?
Yeah, I think there weren't a ton of changes, and we talked. There was another theme of training camp is talking about the continuity. They returned all 5 starters. Natisha Heidemann, who's big presence off the bench, came back. The biggest player they lost was Chechi Zandalicini, who Golden State selected in the expansion draft, and they made a move for Carly Samuelson, who isn't the exact same kind of player, but does a lot of things similarly enough. And unfortunately, Carly's out for the season with a Liz Frank injury to her foot. But it's a lot of what you saw last year, and Fee having another, like, clearly still getting better, which is the scary thought that like last year was kind of okay, this is the best we've ever seen of her, and now it's even better. So there hasn't been too many. They moved their first round pick for more draft capital next year. So the Ola Kosu, the only rookie on the team, is not playing unless it's garbage time. But Maria Kliendakova, aka Masha, who they picked up after the Sparks waived her, has been kind of a boom of an acquisition for them. She is just tough as nails and is always in the right spot defensively. And that giant wingspan of hers is it's pretty easy to be in the right spot when you've got that much room to work with. But also the return of Jessica Shepard has been big too. I think it was easy to sort of forget how good Jess is at so many different things when she wasn't here in the 2024 season. But just her passing, especially in the post or kicking out, the strength she adds, rebounding, I think she's quite a bit stronger than she was in 2023. So Shepard being an incoming player from what they had last year, and not having the players like, Dorka Yuha is sitting out this season in Europe, and they also lost Maisha Hines-Allen in free agency. So there's been a little bit of turnover there, but it's mostly with familiar faces. And yeah, that starting lineup is exactly the same. And I think that's why a great defense last season is even greater this season, and a great player in Fee is even greater again this season as well.
That makes a ton of sense. That does. But I think that's also really good context as we're, breaking down this matchup, detail by detail. Now, I'm going to try in the most condensed way I can to talk about the New York Liberty and what they've been since that final. So obviously they had a very dramatic parade celebration. They were on all of the New York morning talk shows. They were on Fallon after winning. They got a plaque in Lower Manhattan celebrating the championship. There was the ring ceremony, so much pomp and circumstance. But Benijalani Hamilton, who essentially was a huge part of that team last year. She had season-ending knee surgery on her meniscus, which it was sort of tearing in the end of that playoff run last season. And then she went down to Unrivaled, and then the whole thing just sort of tore. Or actually, it was the other knee that tore. But anyway, I digress. But being without Benijalani Hamilton was going to be a huge loss, especially defensively and offensively too. She is really good one-on-one, really good playmaker. So what did Jonathan Kolb have to do in free agency? He went out and traded for Natasha Cloud, someone who could provide similar defensive intensity to Benijalani Hamilton, could take up some playmaking that they lost, and Courtney Vandersloot returning to the Chicago Sky. To be clear, I do not believe that Cloud is a one-for-one replacement for either Courtney Vandersloot and Benijalani Hamilton, but she does a lot of things that they did need. Some other changes. Maureen Johannes is back, and she is really hungry to try to help this team win a championship. And so without Benijalani Hamilton, you need some offensive creation. That's what Maureen Johannes does off the bench. And Kennedy Burke has a much bigger role this year. She very much so has taken the Kayla Thornton spot from last year. Kayla Thornton obviously is in Golden State. She was a first-time All-Star and then had season-ending knee surgery.
Get well soon, Katie.
Which was absolutely heartbreaking. So Kennedy Burke has a larger role. Leonie Fibish is a permanent starter. You know, she became a starter in the playoffs. She is a starter now. She has a larger role on this team. The big three of Sabrina Ionescu, Jonquil Jones, and Breanna Stewart, that is what has stayed constant. And, you know, the story for the Liberty during the season, they started out so well, 9-0, and then what happens? Jonquil Jones goes down with a first-degree ankle sprain. She takes around a month off after she tweaked it for a second time. And so the Liberty had to figure out how they were going to play, how they were going to communicate defensively. What ended up happening was Breanna Stewart became Point Stewie. And this was something we saw happen in the WNBA playoffs. Breanna Stewart played Point Stewie against the Las Vegas Aces. She then played some Point Stewie against the Minnesota Lynx, especially when the Liberty put out their jumbo lineup, which included Nyara Sabally. Nyara Sabally has not been very healthy this season. They've been without her at full strength for a lot of this season. Madeline Kenny reported that the Liberty shut Nyara Sabally down for 2 to 3 weeks, but we'll talk injuries more in segment 2. But the Liberty have been humming along because of those injuries that I've mentioned. They have more losses right now than they probably did last year. They're sitting in second place, 17-8, second to the Minnesota Lynx. And what we've sort of seen is we've seen the bench step up. We've seen Natasha Cloud try to settle in. We've also seen the New York Liberty get even deeper with getting the commitment of Belgian superstar and 2019 WNBA Finals MVP Emma Miesemann. So that is my little New York recap. Coming up,
ending with Emma, what a tease. What a perfect tease.
A perfect tease. Coming up, Terry and I are going to get into where these two teams are right now as they both go into this huge matchup on Wednesday night. And Terry's going to take us inside Lynx practice as well. But first, I want to talk to you all about our good friends at Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, your investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. So I still pay student loans, and Monarch Money really helps me manage all of my expenses in addition to the loans I still owe from being a college student. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA, half off for your very first year. Thank you very much, Monarch Money. And here I am back with the one and only Terry Horstman, and we are breaking down Liberty and Lynx before this huge matchup, which is taking place on Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. on ESPN. So, Terry, let's tell everyone all about where these teams are right now. You were at Minnesota Lynx practice on Tuesday. What did you learn from talking to head coach Cheryl Reeve and the team about what to expect for this matchup?
Yeah, I think, we got to start with the transaction they made yesterday. It was not Emma Meesman, who I know we're going to talk about quite a bit. But they signed point guard Yvonne Anderson, who has, played a long career all around the world. Reeve mentioned she also plays for this Serbian national team. Reeve mentioned experience coaching against her at the international level as, something that played a factor here. She's also played with Fee, played with KMAC, played with BC overseas, familiar with the types of things Reeve wants her to do, is familiar with the system. And I believe it was on Tuesday, the very first game of the All-Star break, Natisha Heidemann went down with an ankle injury. Now, T mentioned after that she's a fast healer and was able to play in both Friday and Sunday's games since then. But I think it kind of gave you a snapshot that with the team at 10 players, if either Court or T goes down, then there's just a big hole in the ball handling department. Now you've got some players who can initiate the offense, but you'd have to, take K-Mac away from other things she does well, take Fee away from other things she does well. So just having someone in there to handle those minutes is a big thing. And, Fee mentioned being happy to play with her again, and that, she's, picking things up pretty quickly. So that was, one something we do need to talk about. The rest of the team is pretty healthy, with the exception of Carly, who we know they'll be out with. Fee has been wearing a brace or wrap on her left shoulder since the Chicago game last Tuesday, and maintains that it's feeling good, feeling fine, and more of a precaution. She's played pretty well in the last few games, so I don't think there's any real concern there. But yeah, she did still have it on at practice, so that shoulder wrap is still on Fee's left shoulder. But other than that, they're pretty full strength at the moment, which I know is not the case for the New York Liberty, but I don't know they're going to spend any time feeling bad for New York for anything like that.
That is true, and that is a good transition. The latest on how this New York Liberty team is doing is Breanna Stewart. She got injured in a Saturday, coming off of a back-to-back from Friday, but it was Saturday against the LA Sparks. It looked like, and according to our Lucas Seehofer, who specializes in injuries and he tracks them, he believes that this is a calf strain. Meanwhile, the team does not want to provide many details as to where in her right lower leg this injury happened. The team also has not provided a timeline. With Jonquel Jones, we knew around the time when she was going to return. That was made very clear. With Breanna Stewart, They do not want to tell us, and that could be because of the opponent that they are facing on Wednesday in the Minnesota Lynx. If I was a betting person, and to be clear, I am not a betting person, my guess is that Breanna Stewart does not play on Wednesday, which is unfortunate, but the Liberty, just like the Lynx and just like what you said about Fee, they are thinking about the long game, the bigger picture. You know, they want to take as many precautionary measures as possible. Stewie got an MRI done. She got imaging done, and it revealed that there was not structural damage, which is good news for not just the Liberty, but I think the women's basketball and WNBA world in general. Mm-hmm. But also there are other injuries. As I said, Nyara Sabally has not really been available at full strength. She got a PRP injection, I believe, in early June, and she's just not 100%. It is not for sure, but she could have got another one because they are giving her 2 to 3 weeks to, get healthy. And then they will try to ramp her back up. Kennedy Burke had some cramping in that Saturday night game against the Sparks, and she was out against Dallas. And so you have these 3 really important forwards and front court players missing time, injured and out. And as a result, the Liberty lost 2 games because of just not being able to have these players on the floor, not playing hard enough. After losing to the Dallas Wings, Sandy Brondello very much so pointed to the issue being an effort issue. So there is a lot of anxiety around New York right now as they deal with these injuries, but at the same time, they do know that Emma Miesemann is coming, and she is coming presumably in early August. It would make sense that she would arrive before the trade deadline, which, Terry, I have been eyeing the Minnesota Lynx as a team that probably should be looking to make a move before the trade deadline on August 7th. I don't know if you have a quick thought about that before we get into our final segment.
I know it needs to be quick. Well, I know they were looking to make that same move in acquiring Emma Miesemann, and our colleague in the media, Maddie Kenny, asked Cheryl brilliantly about that today/yesterday on when you're listening to this, about the Lynx being interested in Emma and how she feels about it. And Cheryl quipped she made the wrong choice. And I know Cheryl's going to get a ton of crap for that. She said it with a bit of a smirk, but also like she meant it. And that's how I think, heads of teams should feel. But they are moving on from that, and we'll see what they do. I am of the belief that they cannot trade the first round draft pick they have from the Chicago Sky next year for anyone. Paige Beckers, yes, do it, but she's not on the menu. So I don't think there's anyone within reason I'd be okay with parting with that pick for, but we'll see. There's a chance to win a title this year, and everyone's a free agent next year. So this will be a one-of-a-kind trade deadline that we will likely never see again. So keep your eye on the Lynx. And
I've always thought that the Lynx needed some more help in the backcourt, which obviously you brilliantly spoke to us about Yvonne Anderson and why that signing makes sense. But I've always thought that the Lynx need more backcourt creation, because this is a team that revolves around Nafisa Collier. But what if Nafisa Collier is not having a good night? Who steps up, especially when Courtney Williams has been hot and cold? Kayla McBride has been hot and cold. Bridget Carlton has clearly she hasn't been at the level that she was last year. So I'm really curious about what the Lynx are going to do. I really believe that they should be on the phone with the Washington Mystics front office about Brittany Sykes. But we will see what happens. Okay, coming up, we are going to get into how we see this first matchup of 4 matchups going. The keys to the game for both sides, the player matchups we want to see, and the predictions that we both have. I used to do this all the time with Matthew Walter when we would spar about the Liberty and the Aces, and we were both always wrong, but it's still fun and we do it anyway. That is why the games are played, but that's what's coming up, and stay with us. Hello, I'm back here with Terry Horstman. We are talking all things Liberty versus Lynx. So Terry, let's talk about the matchup to watch for you.
I think it is the Lynx backcourt versus the Liberty's backcourt. I think a lack of ball pressure was cited as the number one issue in Sunday's game against Atlanta. You kind of think the Lynx are sort of their, catch-22 is being as, good as they are everywhere, but they're not very big. And I do think that Alana Smith did as good of a job on Jonquel Jones as is possible for anyone in the finals last year. But Jonquel is still going to do Jonquel things. So obviously that's something we'll be watching, but I think it comes down to making it, difficult for Natasha Cloud and Sabrina Ionescu to, get to their spots and get things in motion. I think if you can have a bad game for one or both of those two players, that it's gonna go the Lynx way. Especially, I'm thinking of this with the expectation that Stewie won't play. So ball pressure from the guards on the defensive end, and I think that's the same true for the offensive end. Like Fee had an incredible game against the Dream on Sunday, and for the first time, I think really all year, just you didn't get that help from elsewhere. Bridget was 0 for 3. K-Mac was 2 for 9. Courtney had a bit of a roller coaster game. So, we'll see. And when we mentioned Kayla Thornton earlier, this offseason, Courtney mentioned Kayla Thornton being thrown at her in the finals was really, really had a huge impact on her, especially offensively. So I think if I can steal your spot for a second, I think the key to the game for the Liberty should be making sure Courtney Williams has a bad game. I think if Court has a great game offensively, the Lynx are going to win, vice versa.
I couldn't agree with you more. But also, I think what I want to add is for New York, because the backcourt has been so inconsistent for the Lynx, I think the idea is you dare Bridget Carlton. You dare her to take shots, and a lot of them. You force Nafisa Collier to pass the ball and make it very hard for her to score. So, the Liberty are going to have to play their best scramble defense, which has been very hard to come by, especially potentially without Breanna Stewart. I think that if we switch to keys, because I think you nailed it with matchups, for New York, the keys are play harder because they've been playing very hard against some of the weaker teams in the league. They need to move the ball. It's going to be harder potentially without Breanna Stewart because Point Stewie, they would move the ball with Point Stewie. And the communication on defense. I mean, Jonquel Jones is back, and she is one of the best defensive communicators in the league. Jonquel needs to be communicating. Her teammates need to be communicating. So those are the keys to the Liberty winning. They still have a size advantage over the Lynx, but they clearly have not been as focused as the Lynx.
Can I quick add one more key for the Lynx?
Sure.
So this is a game where the upper bowl at Target Center will be open. And I know that the Lynx are trying to pack the house, and just because they're kind of treating it like any other game or saying they're treating it like any other game. The fans will not be. And you can tell fans have had this game circled for a while. And I think we'll let the Liberty know that they would have called the end of game 5 a little bit differently. So the Lynx can't do what they've been doing a lot this season and start slow. They've got to come out of the gates playing well right away. That doesn't mean blow them out in the first quarter, but you got to have a good first quarter. Keep that crowd engaged and loud as much as possible, because it's going to be one of the bigger crowds they've had this season, just because the whole upper bowl will be open, and the Target Center is, I think, the last arena on earth with more upper bowl seats than lower bowl seats. So it can be a difference if they keep the crowd into it.
What do they say? That the fans are the sixth person.
Mm-hmm.
So before we sign off, Terry, let's talk predictions. You want me to go first?
You can go first, sure.
Okay, so here's my prediction. The Liberty are going to play much better than they did against Dallas and Los Angeles, because they had a 40-minute team meeting after they lost to the Dallas Wings on Monday night. Mm-hmm. But the Lynx are much more healthy. My prediction is that the Lynx win by 5 points, 75-80 or 80-75.
Okay. Yeah, I'm close to that as well. I didn't write my score down, but I think, let's call it 84-76. I think there'll be another 3 difference or so, but it's going to be fun, because either way, the Liberty will be on a 3-game losing streak and the sky will be falling in New York, or the Lynx lose back-to-back games for the first time this season and the sky is falling in Minnesota. So one of the top 2 teams in the league will be, in a difficult spot after this game, and that always is fun for the drama.
Fun for the drama. Anyway, thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen today. For your second listen, find the Locked On NBA podcast, where there's no off season. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed MNBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to give a huge shout out to Terry for joining me today. And my guess is this is not going to be the last time that we are going to spar about these two.
No, it looks like the August schedule is just Lynx versus Liberty every night. So we'll be doing this again.
Sounds good. But anyway, this has been Jackie Powell and
Terry Horstman.
And we are signing off. Enjoy the game tonight. You are not going to want to miss it.